Jen Gwirtz, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rabbi Josh. This is awesome, actually.
And
So thank you for
fun,
having me.
fun to have you. Fun to have you on here. I've always been really, really impressed with the work that you do, and I've seen it primarily in the context of art lab exhibitions and stuff, but I certainly have seen it elsewhere. And I wanted to start by asking you about a work that you did, and there's a little clip of it on your website, and that is you did this in 2022,
Yes.
or it premiered in 2022, I guess, and that is Kol Be'isha. So Kol Be'isha is a, I'm explaining this not to you, but to people listening. Kol Be'isha is a phrase from, I think, from the book of Samuel, and the full phrase is Kol Be'isha erva, which means the voice of a woman is nakedness. And the way the rabbis understood that is that a woman's like singing voice can be this kind of seductive thing that men have to be careful about being around and exposed to, and therefore there were prohibitions on women singing and men hearing it and all that stuff. But this piece was just called Kol Be'isha, and it's really, really striking. And there's as with I think a lot of your work, there's a little bit of humor in it, or a lightness, I think, is at least the way I read it. But tell us about Kol Isha.
Okay. So I'm going to back that up a little bit. The original concept of Kol Isha was a triangulation between the Song of Songs, the Tractate of Brachot and the Talmud. In the Song of Songs, in 214, they say, now I'm like, I need to have the quote in front of me. Essentially, that you're all about a woman's voice, that your voice is sweet.
Let me see. I don't have the Hebrew in front of me at this moment, but the 2:14 is my dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding place of the mountainside. Show me your face, let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely.
Donati בחגבי הסלע, בסתר המדרגה, הראיני את מראייך, השמיעיני את קולך, כי קולך ערב ומראייך נאווה. So the word arev, essentially it's wordplay. What Mar Shmuel said, and this was a conversation that had to do with when a man could and could not say the Shema. And I forget what this is called, but the idea of we prolong Shabbat, right? Because
Yeah.
or kitniot, right? We go a little farther than we should because we want to make sure that we break the law. So
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, so for people listening, kitniot is the category, just without going into the details of it, it's a category of food that technically is not prohibited by the Torah, but as out of an excess of caution, these are foods that are prohibited in the Ashkenazic tradition. So that's what that is. Okay. But your point is, so there's a category of stuff where we go the extra mile.
Right. And wordplay. And it only reads in Hebrew. But the word, when you change the vav to a vet, you get lewdness, nakedness. It's not the same word.
Yeah.
Not the same word. But a man can't say the Shema when he's hearing a woman's voice, because if you just change a vet to a vav, you get that her voice is lewd.
So sorry, and let me draw this out.
Thank you.
So what Jen is talking about is, so there's the word in the Song of Songs where it's translated as your voice is sweet is ayin resh bet, the letter bet. It's a 3-letter word, and the last letter is the letter bet. There's a similar word which has as its root ayin resh vav, which is a letter that looks totally different. And if you're just listening to us, I'm sure this is very difficult to keep in your mind. But essentially, there's two words that look fairly close, but the last letter is different. And the one that Rav Shmuel is playing off of has a totally different meaning. It doesn't mean sweet. It means naked or lewd. And this was a kind of not uncommon rabbinic trick that would seem really odd. It is very odd to modern ears. To modern ways of thinking. We wouldn't really do this in the modern world. But for the ancient rabbinic mind, the similarity of those words actually might lend itself to some interpretation. And that's what Mar Shmuel is doing. He's taking the word sweet from the Song of Songs and he's connecting it to lewd or nakedness because of the similarity of the words.
You could also compare this to, say, if you were looking at Shakespeare or Chaucer. It strikes me as being very poetic, as almost structurally very poetic, in a way that does not register in English. Sure. So yeah. Again, it's a rabbit hole. But the fact that this equating sweetness with nakedness, that was a big part of the show. That was a big part of this piece for me. And not necessarily in that. And again, I'm coming back to English speaking Judaism, where we don't have that connection to this old language. Sometimes we dance around a lot on that surface, that pshat, because it's very hard to get underneath. You can in English, it takes you somewhere else.
Right.
And I really, part of what I do is that I want to go to that poetic Hebrew place and bring that alive. And
I
that sort
see.
of takes me.
But I just
Yeah.
want to say one interesting thing just to draw out, maybe give people a sense of the richness of the discourse around Jewish texts. The context is the Song of Songs is a very racy, erotic poem. And so there is a sexual, calling it a sexual tension is almost understating it. It's essentially about these two lovers. And so when it says your voice is sweet, it's not a big leap conceptually. I'm not making an argument for his grammatical move, but
This is
it's not
not
a
a
big.
pipe. Do you know what I'm talking about? This is
No, I
not
don't
a.
know.
Oh, okay.
What's a pipe?
Okay. Duchamp's pipe. Do you know?
Oh, this
This
is
is
not a
not a
pipe.
pipe,
I see.
right? I mean, Song of Songs, you could say it's not subtle at all, but then on the other hand, it's got so
Right.
many layers of meaning,
This
and
is
it's
not a pipe.
racy. It's like,
And what's interesting is that Kolb is as a dancer, the form of a woman's body moving around through space in ways that are very, very free is also in tension with the rabbinic, with this prohibitive perspective that the rabbis bring to a woman's voice. So that's also a layer that's in this dance piece. But anyway, tell me about this. Tell us more about this beautiful piece.
so when I started looking at Song of Songs was actually many years ago. I was a very alienated Jew. I was a dancer, and being a dancer in this country or in any Western country that isn't the state of Israel is very hard if you are a Jew, much less a practicing Jew, because everything happens on Shabbat. Everything. From big trainings and workshops that you got to get in on, to auditions, to shows, to it's all on Shabbat. And that's a big part. But there's also dance is a very non-Jewish thing here. I don't know how else to say it. And I I don't understand why there aren't more Jewish dance artists who
It's
say I'm
interesting,
Jewish.
right? Because there are a lot, like in general, one could say there are a good number of Jewish artists, but you're saying that's not true in dance.
It's not true in dance. There are Jewish dance artists, but I am often, when they find out that not only am I Jewish, but I'm Jewish by background, and also I had Hebrew as a child, and it's very much, I sometimes say, there's a little door in my head that is only partially open, and everything behind it is in Hebrew. And my regaining of this language is like, in some ways, opening a door to memories and experiences that can't be translated.
Wow.
And having has made me, I think, quite different in my maybe even my cognition in dance
Yeah.
spaces. And
Yeah.
I have been approached more than once by people in class, students of mine, colleagues in various situations. They go, "Oh, I'm Jewish too," and I'm like, first thing is like, "Why are you whispering?
Why is this kind of under the table?
Why
Yeah.
is this under the table?" "Oh, but I know nothing about it," essentially, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay." And
Mm-hmm.
then my immediate response is, as as an older person now, I'm like, "That's okay." Then we get a
Well, and now there's another layer to that, which maybe we'll talk about post October 7th. But you
exactly.
said something a moment ago, that beautiful image of the door that's partially open and everything behind it is in Hebrew. So that helps draw out why you you said you have a real interest in
Yeah.
manifesting some of these the Jewish wordplay and the creativity and the interpretive aspects of the tradition, because it's linguistically it's a very very deep part of who you are, and so you're trying to draw that out sometimes through your work. Yes.
Yeah. And I also
Okay.
feel like Jewish identity wise, in and having now been I haven't been an educator for all that long, but the time that I've been a Jewish educator, very often I feel like there's this the way that human beings have these loose ends, these generational loose ends, or little holes in ourselves that we can't fill, that are not ours, but they belong to our parents and our grandparents and the parents before, and it carries forward this little hole. I think some of it is linguistic. I think some of it is literally not having the language to hold this culture that
Yeah.
came from back there. And it's like it's
Yes.
very hard to make that leap without the language. And
Yes.
I'm
There's a, by the way, sorry, there's a phrase, post memory, and
oh,
it describes the
mhm.
experience of the generation that is so profoundly shaped by the cultural memory of the previous generation, but it doesn't have the experiences, and so in a way it's kind of, there's this inarticulate nature to the experience of the second generation, even while it's so profoundly shaped by the experiences of the older generation.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Got to tell you about
Okay.
Marshmallow. When Marshmallow was operating, it was within memory of the destruction of the temple. It was within memory of exile. This was the first generation in Babylonia. So they're talking from this trauma that was okay. See, we're going this trauma that was brought forward from this period within living memory. So you can think about maybe our parents in regards to the Holocaust, or our
Yeah.
parents, grandparents, maybe in regards to like the various people don't migrate to other countries unless they're under a lot of duress. So our we
Well,
are taking this forward.
yeah, and you know the experience of the destruction of the temple, and I'm belaboring this just to so for the understanding of our listeners,
Of course.
it was not just that it was a terrible tragedy that led to this massive what we might call a refugee exodus into lands outside of Israel as the Jews fled. It was also a complete disruption of the entire worldview and the religious worldview that they had. Everything had been built around the temple, and that was the center of the Jewish world. It was the thing that established meaning in their lives. So it's really the level of disruption that we can't even really fathom. And so Marshmuel is of the generation. He's the first generation in Babylonia, the first generation who has known the destruction of the temple, has been part of that in his life.
He went back to study with Yehuda Halevi, Yehuda Hanasi. So he went back as a child prodigy. He was brought to Jerusalem to study as well. Thinking about the Romans were wandering. There was Romans. There were Romans. They were there. They were doing things. And all of a sudden you're here and you're surrounded with all these people who are doing something quite different from you. There may have been another thing that happened with Mar Shmuel, and I read this in his biography, is that he had daughters who were carried off by Romans.
Wow.
They were kidnapped. Now,
Wow.
we don't know. We don't know if maybe these young women fell in love with a couple of Roman centurions and don't.
Right.
But imagine the trauma of a father
Yeah.
whose two daughters were taken from
Wow.
him, and evidently, according to, and this is, yeah, we don't really know what happened to them, but it was not all like they survived and da 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 da, which made me wonder, okay, did you fall in love with a Roman centurion and you just didn't want to tell your papa? But thinking about how he's speaking about women, we got to keep these women safe. We got to keep these women in
Yeah.
our town, in our village. We can't
Right.
let them go. And thinking about a father of that time when people were maybe also surrounded by all kinds of violence done to them.
So it's so interesting. I love what you're drawing
The
out.
question, it also begs the question of the outcome of this wordplay has had these reverberations over millennia. And also the interesting thing is the onus is on the man to not
Yes. Yeah.
hear, to not listen
Yes.
to a
Yes.
woman's voice. And there have been all kinds of, I love what's called hakat.
But hold on. But sorry. Yes and no, because it's
Okay,
also the prohibition against the woman. Like you had to read from the book of Ruth. That's
exactly.
part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, a man. It's on the man to not wander into some environment where a
Right, right.
woman might be singing.
Like he has to like plug his ears and goes la la la
Right.
la la.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Or anyway, but yeah. So the reverberations of this possible response to trauma, possible
Yeah.
response to a culture in which would be absolutely unfamiliar to us, has traveled through time. So now we're in that fourth dimension, right? And it's landed here with us. And even in situations, I've been in various temples that were definitely on the more liberal side, where I think there's a not necessarily an understanding of why it is that no women are on the bima. And yet they're not. And yet there's all these women who are becoming rabbis, these like brilliant women. And also brilliant women I've encountered who are Jewish educators, who are, everyone knows who Mora so-and-so is. Because they grew up with her. They mitzvah with her. Knows who she is, but she doesn't get a lot of legitimacy for that. And
Yes.
this is something that I've been extremely aware of, especially as I become middle-aged. And one of the things that we work on, with the women who I'm working with, who by and large are over 55, which takes me to what am I doing in the studio, which is I work with non-dancers. And this was not necessarily a choice initially, because I'm like, who wants to dance for someone who has no money to pay them, who
Mm-hmm.
is doing things in which you will need a glossary? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I found these amazing women over these last several years, some of whom were in the Colby Asha show. Brilliant. Oh my gosh. And I'm still working with one of them as well. And one of the conversations we have is, isn't it weird how middle-aged women and older women are invisible? Especially short
Right.
women and ethnic-looking women.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
invisible.
And so some of your work is in response to that, is an answer to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this question: why dance for you? What is it about dance that either responds to that in particular or just in general? Is it just something because you're a very cerebral person, but you have this work that is manifest in the body? Not that that's a paradox necessarily, but
Oh, it is.
um,
It's a
so
paradox.
why dance?
I was always that kid who was really drawn to movement. I had a great deal of trouble with my body as a young kid. And I only was diagnosed last year with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So it is a hypermobility condition. I call it a condition because while it is a syndrome, it is the reality for those of us whose tissues are too soft. Literally, just the tissues are too soft everywhere, from knees and back and organs and arches. As I was diagnosed, they're like, you need an echocardiogram right now. And I was like, oh boy. And it was fine. And again, I'm not gonna give you any kind of noise. I was gonna knock on wood, and then I was like, he's gonna have to edit.
It's okay, I'll do it.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
But I was also, I think I would have been diagnosed if I was a little kid now as selectively mute. There were long stretches where I did not say anything. Usually when I was somewhat uncomfortable, I was undiagnosed neurodiverse as a kid. Like people who meet me, they're like, oh yeah, you're autistic. And I'm like, yes, I am. And I've now had a diagnostic but not official test that has basically said, yeah, you're.
But hold on, you were saying that you had I don't know how you put it, but a difficult relationship to your body or difficulty when growing up?
So I am going to make this manifest for folks who are just listening. Have you seen The Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
You've seen that scene with the scarecrow where he comes down off his pole and he just basically flops around on the ground?
Yeah.
And then he like can't hold himself together and he gets back up and it's hilarious? Yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
So it is actually a condition in which your joints, the tissues all over your body, and most noticeably your joints, are too loose. I was
so it wasn't
flexible.
Diagnosed. It wasn't diagnosed as a kid, but you still had the. I see, but it was still, looking back, you now say, oh, that's what was happening.
I was born, and the doctor said she's hypermobile. I had both legs rotated in at this weird angle. And they thought that my hips weren't connected. Like, that's called dysplasia.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, no, her hips are connected. They're just really floppy. And when they put me down to walk, I had this really strange, floppy walk with my legs going all over the place. And they abruptly, because it was 1968 at that point, they put my feet between bars and said, all right, she'll be fine in a little while. And and I also, if I sat in a chair, my feet would go boop, like 180 degrees out to the side. And at one point, my pediatrician said to my mother, I'll write her a note. She shouldn't do contact sports or even do gym, which my parents were just like, they threw me into anyway. But she should do ballet. And that was the beginning of it. And I was finally able to start at 7, and I never turned back. I was totally in love. It was one of these things where I was just like, my body does this. Yeah. And I was placed into a professional track program, and I was obsessed. In ballet. I was a ballet dancer. And in fact, I did go to college because nice Jewish girls go to college. I was at the wrong college, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. But I was taking class every single day, even though I was in art, which is not a very lucrative thing to do. I had an unofficial advisor who had been he was a modern dancer, and he had been a principal dancer for Nikolai. And,
sounds like a name I'm supposed to know, but I don't.
Elwin Nikolai and Mary Lewis had a very famous company in New York City. They did a lot of. It was really modern. It was contemporary for its day. It was very abstract, very of its time, right? It was the 60s and 70s. It was really brilliant stuff.
So this is a question that I have for you. So the Jewish tradition is very intellectual, right? And it's intellectual, and more than intellectual, it doesn't emphasize or celebrate works of the body. I mean, I don't want to, for people who don't know Judaism is in some ways you could say very body positive. Like it celebrates sex in its proper context, and we love food and all of that stuff. But in terms of the works of the ultimate extremes to the human ideal is a Torah scholar or a Talmudic scholar and not a dancer. But these things in you are profoundly connected. And I'm
Yes,
wondering, what is that like? Because I think we were talking just before we hit the camera, just before started recording.
that's
What
what
does
it's
that
called.
mean?
One hand clapping.
Oh, right. So there are people, I know many artists who are Jewish, and who are deeply connected to their Jewish identity, but their work isn't Jewish. You have explicitly Jewish themes in a lot of your work. And I'm just wondering, what's it like to have this cerebral tradition, this intellectual tradition that really places the works of the body in like a lower tier, if it acknowledges them at all, and yet that's so much about who you are in the world. What does it look like to balance those and to be a vessel for the tradition in that way?
Okay, going to feelings now. Getting out of my left brain, going to the right brain. It's one, very isolating. It's extremely isolating. And two, I'm often shocked at the women who come up to me and say, "Oh my God, yes."
Mm.
Okay. And see, I'm still counting. I'm going to stop that now. But it's for me, it's that missing piece. It's
Yeah.
absolutely this missing piece. And I want to bring it back to the language, because movement involves
Yeah.
language. And
Hmm.
it's
Movement. Hold on. Wait. Let me think about that.
right.
Movement involves language. Say more about that.
Or I should really say, so there are many ways to have a text. And I often think of the body as the creating of it. The body creates a text. The body also is a text.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
So
yeah,
help us understand. Like the body is an object that has to be understood, and actions, gestures have to be interpreted to have meaning. Is that what you mean?
but physically, the body has its own message. It has its obviously cultural messages. It has its gender messages. It's got its you can write with the body, but the body just is.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and it demands to be understood in the moment
I
and will
see.
not be denied in that way that Torah also does that. And
Yeah.
then you open it up and you're like, wow, I'm reading this and it's totally different this time around. Like, why did
Yeah.
I miss that before? But bodies
Yeah.
are like that too. And they change over time,
Yes.
inexorably.
Do you find that there are things that can come out through movement and dance that cannot be articulated through text, or do you draw out nuances of Jewish ideas through dance in a way that they wouldn't come out
Yes,
otherwise?
yes. Yes, I had a practice for a long time. I still have it, but I'm actually doing it less now. Maybe doing it more in some ways. I call it dancing Torah. It involves a lot of study. So I'll study the Parsha. I'll study it as much as I can. I'll lane it. I'll chant it to myself. I'll look at the truck and try to understand it sonically. I might glance at Rashi. I might, listen to a podcast about it. And then on Shabbat, when it's being chanted, I will close my eyes and I will just see what happens. And the Hebrew is important. It's, yeah. So dancing Torah is this kind of deep listening process through the body. And I also just want to say, too, Hebrew is a language of verbs. It's not a
Yes.
language of nouns or
Yeah.
even of adjectives.
Mm-hmm.
It's a language in which there's a lot of counting because every letter is a number.
Yeah. Well, just to draw out in a clear way for people who are listening, one example of what you're talking about when you say it's a language of verbs, there are very few. The Torah's primary way of painting a picture of who a certain character is, whether it's Moses or one of the matriarchs, is not through adjectives. Like if you're writing a novel today, you would you would describe Moses, and you would probably say what Moses looked like, and his face. He looked at Pharaoh, and with this, and his face was, his eyebrows were angry or whatever. But in the Torah, generally doesn't work like that. It's not without adjectives, but the primary way of describing characteristics is through actions. That's how we come to understand who a character is by the verbs that are used in telling their story.
That's like totally, that's a really brilliant way of expressing that. Yeah. Yeah. What do you do? Naaseh v'nishma, we actually do first before we understand, wax
So
on,
you're
wax
saying
off.
that lends itself to an expression through dance.
You gotta oseh, you gotta do.
Interesting.
And sometimes, and I think there have been a lot of Jewish dance improvisers, which I find extremely interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Probably most people don't even know that improvisational dance is a thing.
Oh, yes. And
I guess I didn't until you said that.
yeah, we have on the West Coast our own particular improvisational dance trajectory. One of the great great grandmother of West Coast contemporary dance was Anna Halprin. Very, very Jewish, but very West Coast Jewish. Like she was not, she came from New York. She came from New York City, but she was like a part of the California landscape. She's brilliant. Yeah. Literally, she did a piece where she was literally like covered in mud and naked and lying in the trees. And she's, what a brilliant woman. And then there's recently passed, Zichrona Livracha, and also Anna too, Zichrona Livracha, Ruth Zipporah, the founder of Action Theater, which I...
So do you think that there's something inherently... Why did you point out that a lot of... There's many Jewish improvisational dancers? Is there something about the improvisational act that kind of rhymes with the Jewish tradition in some way?
I think, thinking about both of them, they triangulated a lot. There was a lot of... And this is at risk of oversimplifying their approaches. Anna worked from scores. They were written scores. They were and if you went into that little room that I used for my piece in the show in June.
Yeah, at the Eastside Jewish Commons.
There were little scrolls, and you could take a little scroll and take it home and look at these things. And I know that people looked at them and they were just like, I don't know what to do with this.
I remember that it was really a cool part of the experience.
So that was a little bit of an homage to a lot of the women I've studied with who work from scores, and it created a horizontality. Anyone can do a score. You don't have to be a trained ballet dancer with years of this experience of virtuosic movement to do a score. You can be anybody, you can be anywhere, and you can open up this little scroll and see what it says. It's like a little poem, but it involves action, specifically your action.
Can you give an example of like one of the things that was on the scroll?
Okay, there they are. So this one is a particularly Jewish score, and it's called Tzimtzum. Is that too Jewish, or should I try one that's more in English?
No, it's perfect.
They were numbered from 0 to 6.
And we're talking about Art Lab. Each cohort has an exhibition where the artists exhibit their work. And so Jen's exhibition work was in one of the small rooms at the Eastside Jewish Commons, and as part of that you had these scrolls that you're referring to as scores.
Correct. And there was a video that was projected high up on a wall, which was me doing a dance out in nature in a rainstorm, actually, which was interesting. And then there was counting, lots of counting. I just decided that I was part of it was, like I was saying earlier, and actually we didn't talk about this, I was taking care of my dad and mom during this time. I remember. I was very engrossed in taking care of them. And partially as a nervous habit, I started counting on paper. Like I would just start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I was counting in base 7. So then I would go 7, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 2. So, because there was no 7, right? And so I counted in base 7 to some ridiculously high number. And
I'm laughing. No, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I love the way that your mind works. It's great.
I appreciate this because I get a lot of expression question marks from people when I start talking about what I do.
Right.
So the scores started with a readme first, like an old-fashioned computer program, and it says each scroll contains one sequence made of 7 scores. Each score can result in one or more dances, and they should be performed in order. A dance can be broadly defined, but it should be sourced from the body. It's not necessary to have expertise to perform this sequence. Feel free to redefine and explore. The structures are there to help. Use what is useful. Explore habits, then try something new. The dances can be performed at any time and in any place. They can be performed alone or with others. And then I said, record your dance on video and landscape format, send to me. Nobody did, but that's okay. And so the first one was 0, and it's Tzimtzum, which is the great withdrawing of the divine from the creation.
In the Kabbalistic account of creation, the reason there can be a created world and anything else outside of God is because God performs this act of tzimtzum, which means like contraction or withdrawal. So if initially everything in the world was 100% there wasn't even a world, it was just God and godness. In order to create the universe, God contracts God's self to make empty space, and that act is called tzimtzum.
And there's so much. Just imagine 5 or 6 or 7 different rabbit holes. Okay, this is a prompt about choice and response, actions and repercussions, balance, push-pull, volumes, and vacuums. Begin by becoming aware of the volumes within and around your body. Make a motion with your body. At the same time, feel the equal and opposite pulling away from that motion. Sense the body as a whole system so that any action, reaching up, includes an equal and opposite reaction dropping down. Allow Tzimtzum to create a softness and a fluidity. Notice what happens in the created spaces and volumes. So that was 0, which is the first prompt. And then you would just...
I see. So it's interesting because that exhibition project really manifests these two parts of you at once, because you are a dancer, but you're also a teacher. But the question I want to make sure to ask you before we wrap up is, I'm wondering if dancing for you is something you might call a religious experience as a Jew or a spiritual experience, or do they occupy different spaces in your mind or in your soul?
I actually don't like the terms religion and spiritual. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to use them anyway because I feel like we have them, and we should.
No, it's okay. But tell me why, briefly. Tell me why, and then tell me what terms you might use.
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. As far as religion,
do you feel that they're limiting?
A little bit. I feel like when we say religion, we talk about faith because English. I don't feel like I need to have faith because my body tells me that gravity is all the time and everywhere. And the discovery of the things that exist, I feel like for me is housed in the body. And this is very deeply spiritual for me. Now, as far as religion, and I'm struggling right now, I admit I was like a diehard, like as much as I could, shul on Shabbat at Shir Tikva, where I felt very welcome, still do. Davening was very important to me as this physical activity, and I've been reading. I stumbled into this seminar by these two klezmer scholars, where they're married, Yudit Frigiesi. And she talks about the practice of davening, like in this.
Davening, but davening is a Yiddish word that talks about that means prayer, traditional.
Right.
Well, usually refers to traditional prayer.
And the sourcing also of that installation with the video of me and the movement sequence, the prompt, was called Davening in Base 7. And it was about davening and this practice of this moving and this chanting and this kind of gestalt of bodies together experiencing this in the Hebrew, whether or not you understand it, the rush of the language over you and through you is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that, you could call it religion. You could call it Jewish.
Yeah.
Like for instance, back in 2012, when I did a 2-hour show about gravity. It was very, very Jewish and no one knew. There was this section I called cantorial. Now, if you had asked me when I was 10 what I wanted to be, I would have said a chazan.
A cantor, yeah.
Yeah, but there are many things it's another conversation. But I don't know if you remember this elderly senator from Alaska, Ted Stevens, who said,
"Oh wow, that's going back, yeah."
Yeah, well, it's 2012. The internet is a series of tubes. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Yes.
Have you ever seen the whole speech? The whole speech is like it is proto-Trump. It's really proto-Trump, and yet it holds some very interesting truths if you read it.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Okay.
So I took this English speech verbatim with pauses, and I put it to music, vocal music, but in the style of davening, which is somewhat. It's got a tom, it's got a flavor, and it's got a certain improvisational thing going on.
Okay.
So I called it cantorial, and it was weird, and there was dancing to it, and my a man who was working with us, who was like this brilliant musician, not Jewish, actually from the Caribbean, and I was like, "Hey Patrick, let's do this thing together. Let's make it a duet." And he's like, "Yeah, great. And he could not do it. He could not improvise in this way.
Interesting.
So interesting. And I really had to think about this Jewish activity of vocalizing our prayer practice.
Yeah.
It's the action plus the content.
Yeah.
But it's not one or the other. You got to do all of it.
Okay. So it seems to me like I'm going to, for you, it's part of a whole. You're not dividing yourself up into Jen the dancer and Jen the Jewish spiritual person or whatever the right word is. Okay, it's powerful. Listen, Jen, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Who knows, maybe there has to be a part 2 down the road, but awesome. I want to close by asking you these 2 questions. One is, what's one thing you love that you want people to know about? And the other is, what is the best Jewish food?
Okay. The one thing I love is actually 2 things. But this is the main thing that I really love right now, which is this book. It's On Freedom by Timothy Snyder. It is
he wrote On Tyranny, didn't he?
Which is
okay, and
that's almost cliff notes.
Great. Why do you like this? Why do you give us 30 seconds on the book? Why do you like it?
Because freedom has all these. For one thing, he's a brilliant writer, thinking about these 5 aspects of freedom, which is sovereignty, unpredictability, mobility, factuality, and solidarity. These things, even though they're nouns, they involve actions. They involve people. And this also refers back to a song that I love by Painted Bird. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Oh, I know. Is that no? It's not Kaczynski.
No. He's this brilliant, like Yiddish. Yeah. And he's this. Yeah, he makes
Painted Bird. Yeah.
Painted Bird. Okay. Freedom is a verb.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And he wrote a little book on tyranny, which is really wonderful as well. Okay, that's great. That's great. It's timely. And what is the best Jewish food?
Oh God. Okay. There's the savory and the sweet. Savory would be a really good brisket, but not using ketchup. None of that.
None of that
None of that.
nonsense.
None of that. Like,
How about Coca-Cola? Is that just
oh
a
God,
travesty?
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Nope, nope.
Yep.
It's got to be like, yeah, can't be out of a bottle. No. Or
Okay.
no packaged food. That's the savory, and the sweet is matzah crack made with a Yehuda
Yeah.
gluten-free matzah.
Oh, you're gluten-free. You're
I
liberated
am,
from gluten.
but I have heard eating friends that the flavor of this particular gluten-free matzah is completely addictive, and
I've had it. It's good.
yeah,
It's good.
yeah.
And yeah, I think yeah, I listen, brisket, you can't go wrong. And the matzah crack. Well, for people who don't know what matzah crack is, that's what you just give a brief description.
Oh
'Cause
gosh,
it's so good. In fact, I think it's the second time it's come up on this podcast.
oh really? It's addictive. I always gain like 2 to 3 pounds every Passover. Yes. You take your matzah, you lay it out on a pan, you make a caramel, you put the caramel on top of the matzah, you put that sucker in the oven, and you caramelize that thing, and you bring it out, and you pour chocolate chips all over it, and
it's so indulgent. It's insane.
It's
insane.
It's a shanda. It's just
It's too. All right.
You gotta put that. You gotta give it away.
The last thing I just want to close it for you to be able to plug. You're doing this field. What do you call it? The field something.
So yes, this is how I actually met my husband.
So people can plug in and connect with you, and
yes.
So just give us a minute on that.
So the field is it's also very Jewish, but it's I call it boobering. So it's a peer facilitated group where you look at each other's work. It can be obviously dance work. It can be visual art. It can be poetry. We have a lot of poets here in the Portland area. Yep. Music, whatever. It's multidisciplinary. You show work, you take a break, and you feedback work in the order shown. The idea is that the feedback is reflective, not directive. The person who's giving the feedback is not trying to shape the piece in their own image. You're trying to put yourself into the shoes of the artist and help them make the work that they want to make. So it's an education for, boobering.
Okay, great. And how do if people want to participate in that, how do they reach out to you?
So this one is too late. Everybody's on vacation. We actually had to cancel this one. There will be, not with me, there will be one with Sadie Lay coming up in the fall, and there will be another one in the winter. I will probably be doing one in the spring.
How do people get a hold of you?
So I would say email me directly. Is there a way to put my email in the
show notes? Yep, you bet. We'll do it.
And they can contact me through my website. They can contact me directly. Right. It will be in Southeast, probably at Performance Works Northwest, but I'm actually going to be in conversation with Morgan over at Coho Theater, which is on the exact opposite side of town. We may be doing some work over there with Field. We'll see.
Okay, great. So I'll put all that information in the show notes, including your website. I'm so grateful to you for what you do and for the conversation. And I want to wish you a beautiful week.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Josh. Thank you so much for doing this. And I feel a little less like one hand clapping in the other.
Here's the other hand.
Exactly.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.